Computer. Lights.
Boom, 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 boom. Good morning, everybody. Oh, we don't have music. We should get music. And happy Thursday. It is Thursday. That's not the music we want. That's the music we want. I mean, not that the music that was up there is not good, but I don't have the rights to it, so it just ended up getting all of my stuff banned. All right. So today is the last of the broadcasts before my little vacation where I head off to Houston. I'm not, in fact, looking forward to heading off to Houston. Just saying. But tomorrow morning I will be on the road, so I won't be here. So, okay, we're going to work a little bit today on some of the parts of the Bellatrix thingy that we were working on before. One thing I did notice a lot of people saying whenever I put out the pictures on Facebook was that these units here looked like air conditioning units or something to them. So I think I might want to redo the little rolling cabinet effect and come up with a better plan for it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. As much as I really like these rolling cabinet things, it is an homage to Star Trek because if you watch the Star Trek II movie specifically, and Star Trek 1 and Star Trek 2, Kirk's quarters, they have these special rolling cabinets, which actually were boat cabinets purchased from some company that no longer exists, and trying to find those cabinets now are really, really hard. But the cabinets were specifically from what you'd find on a boat. So they were. I've actually tried to source them because I wouldn't mind having a bunch of those cabinets too. Except now it's kind of expensive. Anyway, that's what these were. But instead, these kind of look more like air conditioning units. So we're going to go back in and fix that. That wasn't what I was after. So we're going to open up. It's all over here. All right. Here's what we're going to do. So we're going to take these overhead lockers that we had. And we're just going to go in here and just pull out this, what we've already been working on kind of here. There we go. And I did like them being very black and dramatic. And definitely something I think works very well. But what I think I will do is redesign them to be just black doors. So things like just put door. I hate to say that I don't like this as much, but I don't like this as much. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to have to fix something here. Hang on. Oh, no. Now all I'm doing here is just making good morning, Brent. It's good to see you, my friend. I'm making sure that that's there. That's what we're looking for. So when I posted this, it snowed? It snowed there, huh? So is that, I assume that that's relatively uncommon. I don't know exactly where you are, but I do know that aren't you somewhat close to the coast? That's still kind of wild. So, yeah. I don't know if you can see that, Brent, but Ghost Hand's saying that it snowed yesterday. That's really awesome. Well, unless you're driving in it, as I have often said. I love snow a lot. Unless we're driving it. Well, it is, but Brazil is pretty much right on the equator. So, yes, you're right. It's winter. But no, why did I do that? Why do I do these things to myself? There we go. Okay. Ooh. So it was a cold snap. Those are brutal. Those are brutal. I'm with you. When I was in Japan, we had a little, just like that, the same thing, because we were just north of Tokyo, and it snowed, and like the leek fields, because I was in a little apartment complex right across the street from a leek field, and the leeks all died, and they had to replant them with peppers, which were very tasty peppers. I'm just saying. Still was a major bummer for them because they lost those crops. But yeah, it doesn't snow a whole lot where you're at, does it? And I was thinking that that's not a very common thing, especially kind of early in the season. Aren't we a little early in the season for super cold snaps? I would have expected that would have been, well, no, I guess we're just after solstice, so it's probably the coldest. So generally speaking, the Earth operates in a way of which energy is kept in our atmosphere. So our coldest and hottest months are generally after solstice by quite a bit. So I would have thought that would have been, for you guys, you wouldn't have gotten the real cold until we get closer to like late July, early August. That would have been my thought. I also thought you were more coastal. So, well, anyway, congratulations on your snow, or my condolences on your snow, depending on which way your snow is going on this one. Whether you're with the farmers who have lost crops, which is a bummer, or whether you have to drive in it, which is also a bummer. There we go. So we're going to, all we're doing here is patching this up. I don't know if you guys are here. They got snow for real in the south. Gotcha. Kind of like the stuff we get here. There we go. All right. So this is one of those reasons why I love talking to people all over the world, of course, because it's already 20 degrees outside here. And I think that the temperature is expected to get up to 25 today. And so it's always fun to talk to people all over the world who are like, it snowed last night. And I'm like, because it's 20, you know, we still leave all of our fans on all night long because it'll get too hot in here if we don't. Find that always fascinating. I'm having a lot of stutter with a pen today. It's very irritating to me. The stutter with a pen is on this, in this particular case, is where my pen, this is something I've had since the beginning of this particular tablet. But the pen, it was -2 yesterday. Gosh. You know what? It was past 40 in Portland and Seattle last couple of days, and those guys don't have air conditioning because they're a coastal town, so usually their temperature isn't that hot. But my wife's mom and sister live in Portland, and they just were having a rough time of it. It was pretty unpleasant. So when it hits 40 here, we have I use an evaporative cooler, which we call a swamp cooler. because there's no, we don't have any water in our air. There's no moisture in our air, so evaporative coolers work really well. And so our little evaporative cooler, which isn't little, it's a box unit that sits in our window. But the evaporative cooler does a really good job of evaporating and cooling. But when it starts hitting 30, I'm going to be sitting there saying, hey, Ghost Hand, can I come down and visit with you for a while? Because I don't do well after 30. I am useless above 30 degrees. I just lie there, and I hate life. And I'll handle -2 just fine. I'm good with -2. All right. So I went ahead and changed the doors on the storage units because there was confusion when yeah, but you guys probably have like Houston, which also sits in the mid to upper 30s most of summer. You probably also have, central air or air conditioning units of some sort that are starting to show up in all of your houses. I'm sure it's not like everybody has one, but I'm sure it's getting to the point where a lot of people are having those. So okay, so we're going to change. What we're doing here is we're just changing this so it doesn't look like a vent anymore, because people were saying it looks like an air conditioning unit, and it's not supposed to look like an air conditioning unit. It's supposed to look like an overhead locker. With lighting units underneath it. So we went ahead and changed that. Now I'm going to also do another trick here. And this is going to be an interesting trick. That's what I wanted. Yeah, I can imagine that. A little too pricey to run your AC all the time. That's one of the things I like about our evaporative coolers. It just runs. It's a fan that just effectively sprays water on pallets inside there. So it's got sort of a mesh inside the box of the cooler, and that fills up with water. And then as the water evaporates, it takes the heat away with the evaporation. So inside the chamber, the temperature drops. It only works, though, in areas that does not have a lot of water in the air, because if you have a lot of existing humidity, then the evaporative cooler cannot evaporate. And so you end up with that kind of problem there. We are working on a little trick that I used to do back in the day. I'll show you how this works. Yeah, see, there's no way Kansas can handle it. However, let's be realistic here. I think you and Ghost Hand have sort of the same thing going for you guys. When you guys don't have humidity, that's when we've got a problem. Because Kansas is getting its humidity from being in the basin, the Mississippi basin. So you're getting all of your humidity from the Mississippi River. And I think Ghost Hand's getting all of his humidity from the Amazonian River. You guys have big rivers. All you guys in your big rivers. Okay. So what I've done here, doesn't look as cool. So we're going to take but the Colorado River isn't high enough or isn't big enough to cause a lot of humidity. I mean, I know that we were down at the Grand Canyon and it wasn't a high humidity level even there. And to be fair, Brent, the Colorado starts at Mount Massive here, and it's like this wide. I mean, I've been to oh, there you go. So you do have like a bigger river near you. Ghost Hand's not that close to the Amazon River, which makes sense. Not everybody lives around the river. There's more to Brazil than the Amazonian River. You know what I'm going to do? So. I should be able to just take the black here and go delete and then say fill and fill. So what I want to do. Oh, yeah. Well, and I had said that a couple of, okay. See, now I'm trying to figure out how you managed to get the C with a little thingy on the bottom. Oh, man. I will look it up. Hang on real quick. Let me deselect this, though. Look it up. Let's look it up. We don't have to look it up online, but I'm going to look it up right here because I'm actually horribly curious. Northwest of Sao Paulo. Oh, 198,000. Huh. Okay, now wait a minute. Is it already 19 degrees there? Is it really 19 degrees there already? Huh. So you've gone from -2 to 19, I guess. If you're wondering what happened there, Brent, I looked up the city that Ghost Hand's in, and it had, of course, weather.com was like, it's already, 19 degrees Celsius. And I'm like, he just said it was -2. That's a serious change. I guess the sun did change everything really fast. But looks like he's already up to 66 degrees there. It's a respectable temperature. Now, wait a minute, because see, now Here's the thing, Ghost Hand. If I'm coming to visit you, I am not visiting you in the summer. I'm just not. If you are already in the dead of winter, recovering from -2, and you're already in 19 at this point in time, I'm like, your summers are brutal. It'll kill me off. So anyway, we have a lot of fast temperature changes here in Colorado too, and that has a lot to do with our altitude, because we're 1,600 meters, high above sea level. See, 30 to 35 in the summer. Yeah, I'll visit you in spring or fall. But okay, here's what we're going to do. We're switching to this. If you're wondering what I'm doing, something specific here. There we go. So we're going to take this technical pen and we're going to just clean up the edge here. Although, man, the pictures of your city, though, are just lovely. It does look like a wonderful place to visit. Yeah, it looks lovely. It really does, too. I like the fact that you have a little teeny Statue of Liberty. I think that's funny. I think that's adorable. You got a really pretty Tory gate, too. Okay. So what we've got here is what we call a mask, right? So now that I've saved the overhead locker, I'm going to save this as overhead locker X, which is what I usually do for transparencies. And what this allows me to do, if you go in here, I have our overhead locker. We need to rescale everything, by the way, because here's a 6 foot or 2 meter maquette, and I'm noticing everything is just huge in here. If we go in here to this overhead locker, we can change the, come on, where is it? Opacity. We go here, we hit browse, and we get that overhead locker X that we just made right here. And it looks horrible right here now. You're like, why would you do that? But it's 19-degree temperature changes obviously are not, rare. But when we render this, you can see now the doors are open, right? So the next thing we're going to build real quick is an interior box for this with a shelf in the middle. And then you'll be able to see that we can open a door or open one of these doors in this cabinet now and be able to put little shelves inside there and things like that for people to put their widgets and doodly wops and stuff like that. So that's part of what we're doing today. The other thing we should do is take this guy here and select his actual body there. We can rotate him to lay him down. Bork, over he goes. And we can get an idea of how big a bed should be. Clearly, since he's a 2-meter human, beds can be smaller, right? There we go. That's closer to an accurate. And we can take a look now over here and go to parameters. And it's scaling now at 195, right? So if we take this and we'll try that too, 195, that should be the correct size, right? That won't be universal. Like this guy, part of the reason we have a problem is that this shelf came in at 100%, and it really shouldn't be, right? Right. There we go. Maybe make it a little bit larger. It is a desk after all. So we're just resizing everything to match the maquettes. Right. We'll do 195 for you too. And this one's probably at a different scale completely. So things made in Blender, I just kind of make them. Right, I just build these things, and I don't actually put them to scale. And then I put them in scale here. Now, figure this guy out. We're going to have to figure out what all of these walls look like. So we can put him and stand him back up again. We bent him. Stand him on the floor. Stand him up against the wall. Generally speaking, for a 2-meter height human, the walls behind him should be about 2.5 meters, right? Somewhere in there, right between 2.5 and 3 meters, depending on what the size of the standard room is. So it's something like that. So we want kind of enough of a height differential that we can see. We want his locker to be a little larger, I think. We got to be kind of careful though, because it sits right here, right? And its size is predicated by where it fits on this wall. Because it's got to be up against this wall, but it can't cover the window because this is military and they will have built it to be exactly the right size. I say that like the military does that normally, and we all know the military doesn't, but hey, I'm hoping that in the future people kind of get their act together. There we go. So that locker is about that big. And we fixed the bed to be the correct size, so we'll move it to the right spot. Put it right here. This allows you to... The next question, though, is how low is it? Haha, Windows. Yeah, right. This isn't on the ship. So, this isn't on the ship. This is on the quarters on the Polaris. I'm going to use all these elements again when I make the Kittiwake. The Kittiwake bunks and the quarters on the Kittiwake. But yeah, there are no windows in the Kittiwake. You don't get that luxury. No windows. You guys are military. You guys can just deal with it. Suck up and drive on, Also, remember that these are officers' quarters. No, it's not the case. We spend a whole lot more money on things that blow up other people and a whole lot less money on making our soldiers comfortable. I wish that were the other way around. I am all about trying to make the soldiers as comfortable as possible. So yesterday, or day before yesterday, when I put all this together, it was throw it together as quickly as possible to get it working online. There is sort of a moment we're going to have to go through where we have to fuss with this and get everything lined up properly. And that's just the nature of the beast. So we'll have to sit here and kind of mess with it a little bit and get all of it lined up properly and things like that. Yeah. There. So we're just putting in all these pieces and actually placing them in their correct locations now. Right? Like the nightstand should be right next to the bed with its little cooling and heating unit. Keeps your water or whatever cool at night. That might be too close to the bed because that's inside the bed. We'll put one out there. Sorry for being a little disorienting here, guys. Just trying to kind of get all these pieces put in. There we go. most of this together. It's coming together nicely. Okay. Let's go back a little. And these will reset next time I load this room. Right now, they're still showing the older maps. It's kind of the nature of the beast. They'll get better as time goes on. There we go. So the quarters are now markedly smaller. And it feels a little bit more constrained. Now that and I had actually kind of felt like it was a little too spacious before when we had done it with the larger one, because I've got the camera here in DAS set for 35 millimeter. Which definitely has an effect. I'm intrigued by the fact that this is not lined up. Yeah, that's why I get aggravated when people post memes of China having more firepower than us. The whole idea is to just get into a fight, and I understand that. I mean, I understand the need and the want to get into a fight, but it is ridiculous. Okay, so I'm lining up the walls because we know that the floor and the ceiling on this are the size of the room that we want. We made a model the size of the room. So these guys should line straight up with the ceiling and the floor, right? And so I know at least on this side of this model, that should go to the ceiling, this should connect to the floor, etc. Now this feels much more like the more claustrophobic-esque feel that I wanted out of this room when I originally designed it. Like I said, remember the camera is set for 35 millimeters. So we go down here and we check the camera settings, right? And we select the camera and we have it set for 35 millimeters. If you're wondering, what does this do? Lens depth is sort of the way that we all deal with different, or we deal with the view of in 3D we use lens depth, which means camera should be 4K. It is 4K. It's still 35 millimeters. 4K is this render right here. This is a 4K render. That back wall is not sealed, and I can now tell. Right? You can see how detailed everything is. You can even see the little pictures behind the console, right? So, you ready for this? This is how lenses work. The higher the number of millimeters, the finer the cut in here, right? So, if we start raising the numbers, this is what we get, right? If we drop it back out, we can go all the way back to almost a fisheye, and that's what we get. Some glue on it, and that'll deal with the wall. So you hear photographers talk about lenses that do 35 millimeter versus 60 millimeter versus 300 millimeter. If like I have a 300 millimeter street zoom on my camera, and I use that for taking pictures, in a sports event. I'm not getting anywhere near those guys, man. They're going to kill me. So instead I use my 300 millimeter and I zoom way in. So it's hard to see this wall because it's using, there we go. It's hard to see the wall because of the fact that we're using, just glue myself to him, speaking of glue. His heel. Because then we can take the wall here and raise it up. There. Until it's locked into place. And we'll bring it out and then bring it back in until it's correct there. And then we'll go over here and check this side of the wall and make sure it's all good there too. Because this is where we have and actually this wall needs to be raised just a hair. There we go. The problem is with all these open compartments, it's very hard to see whether they're lined up properly or not. Right? Because like this guy looks awkward if he's not placed inside this shell. But then whenever I drop him down to place him inside the shell, we end up with kind of a gap. Which, that's not a real major problem, I guess. Because then we can... But that's a problem. He does need to be glued to the wall. There you go. He can't just be floating in space. So we have the last little bits of fuss that we're doing here. We're just fussing with this stuff to lock it into place. Because once we do, I'm going to lock this set down and it's not going to move again. And I'll just move characters inside the set. The only thing I won't lock down is the chair, right? Because the chair needs to be able to turn around or move or whatever we need to do with it. So we'll talk to him and bring him back over and take a look at the height, the altitude of the panel here. That's about right. Right? We're right about the correct angle now for working on this panel. If you were standing can stand up and be fine. We'll also make sure while we're at it, the desk is the correct distance from the wall, because it's not. There we go. Now I have already made the console part of the desk. The other thing I want to make sure is this, because there will be. Here we go. In fact, it looks like that'd be cool right there. And the line up and go all the way through like this. But I don't think that's going to be the case. That's all right. But we do want these guys to be visible above the desk part of this desk. And you can see how this works. There are lighting emplacements right here, which are directly now above the desk. So when the officer is sitting at the desk doing paperwork right now, have them sitting here at this desk, there's a light right here that's lighting up the desk, and a light right here that's lighting up this part of the desk. So these two lights light up the desk. This light lights up the nightstand. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can push the little button and the light above the light stand comes on, so that you don't have to worry about it. In the scene that we're dealing with right now, we have Chang in the bed over here. And then we have Jen in this chair. And if you were with me on that day when I was doing it, this is probably like the shot we're going to have usually. Like right here will be the wide shot of that particular room. And I will just pivot the chair this way and put it this way like this, and she'll be sitting here. Chang will be asleep here, or laying in bed here. She's not asleep anymore. And Jen will be here. And that's how this will kind of go down on this, so that all will work that way and it'll be just fine. So now that we've done all this though, let's save this scene. Now, one of the aspects that I really liked about Julie Cochran that I think I want to pass on to Chang is that Chang is not as computer savvy. She's somewhat old-fashioned. Cochran was too. Here's the other thing though, real quickly. See where the pad of the chair is? That should be about the same height as the bed. We're going to have to fix that. And I'm about to do something even more weird now here. I apologize, guys. This is our all right. West wall, and we can make it invisible temporarily. Is it off view? It is. Good job, guy. We're going to now take, this is called an orthographic view. The view here is flat. So you have either orthographic or you have perspective. In the case of orthographic, it has no perspective, literally. And so this left view is orthographic. Everything is just laid out as if the camera can just see only in a straight line, kind of like the way that the sunlight shines. But this allows us to look at some things in this room, not the least of which is this line is going to drive me crazy over the years. I can already tell. So probably going in and fixing this one line, since something else lives above it, is going to be a thing. But the other thing that's going to be important here, I'm going to move this chair. And what I was just saying was, people's butts sit here. We design all of our chairs so that a standard sized 6 foot or 2 meter male, their butt is in the right spot on a chair, right? So I specifically built this to be I don't know if I have any Genesis 2 poses. Oh, I do. We've got sitting poses. So they're for girls, but that's all right. The point is still fine, right? So I'll lose my spot in here if I do this. So I don't want to do that for too long. So if we take him, he's sitting now, right? And if we screw that all up really badly, don't ever do that again. We'll do this. Okay. Now we'll take him and we'll move him to the chair. Right? Work. And this will help us decide exactly how big the chair needs to be. All right, so let's go back to our orthographic view. His feet are flat on the ground, so the chair is too large. All right, because it needs to be about this big. There. So this is a human sitting in a chair. It's a human chair at standard size. So now we need to have him turn around, work, and go sit on the bed. Same thing. We want the bed to be the right height that you sit down just like it was, and it's just a little bit large. Like there. So what I'm seeing, the bed isn't on the ground. The bed's not on the ground. Now the bed's on the ground. So we've got one of two options. One, we can either increase the scale Y and make it taller like this, which probably is the better choice. There we go, just like that. Now when we go to perspective view, he's sitting on the bed properly, like you'd expect. The bed is still long enough for him to get into it, and we've given him a little bit more mattress now. Isn't that nice of us? Aren't we nice people? Give him more mattress, man. Move the chair to here. And apparently rock the chair. Not what I was after. There we go.
It's time to take a quick break.
I like how he's looking this way now. Like there's something in the locker. I mean, if you look at the look on his face. He's like, there's something in that locker over there, bro. Right. I'm easily entertained. That's what it is. It just boils down to easily entertained. Okay, before we take our break, save everything. So save. All right. Excellent. So now we have, this will be difficult for Chang. She's small, so she's going to be kind of having a height differential, but that's exactly what Small people tell me all the time, let's stand up and stretch. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Oh. I have quite a few beloved friends who are small in stature. And that is one of their biggest complaints, is that furniture is built for people like me who are 2 meters. And not, in fact, built for people who are, 1.6 meters. 1,600 centimeters. Or 660 centimeters. I don't know, 1,600 millimeters. 1,600 millimeters, man, that's a lot of millimeters. Okay, walk around the place a little. Get some exercise in. Hang on real quick, we'll be right back. All right. It is a lovely day outside. Like looking around outside. My kind of day. All right. Guess I'm just going to run without. Be running without more coffee. My beloved coffee. All right. Here we go. Back to work for us. So, we've resized everything in this room to fit a human. It's a human-sized quarters. And we've checked the sizes of everything so that they all fit people. Right. One here real quick. There's a standing one too. And we'll just make him stand real quick. This is what they call a standard T-pose. And it is just the standard default pose for all 3D figures. I'm going to put him up against this and put him right here. Because now we're going to have to look at this and kind of get an idea of whether he is at the correct altitude for things. Now, if I stand up and I do the standard T-pose here, I'm noticing that my desk is at about mid-thigh. So I feel like the altitude of this table is a little high right here because it should be mid-thigh. So I'm going to bring it down to right there. Mid-thigh. Right? Now, if we think about overhead shelving units and things like that, now I actually cannot reach and almost reach the ceiling of my office here. So he should not be able to reach either. right? If he were to lift his arm above his head. Shoulder, please. Shoulder, please. Thank you. A little awkward with the character there. But he shouldn't be able to reach either. So the ceiling is at the correct height. So this guy, though, the overhead locker is going to be so far above Chang's head, she'll never put anything up here. I mean, let's be realistic. She's not going to put anything up there. So I'm going to look at maybe making it larger and bringing it down to something more like this. Which is a little bit more reasonable as far as size goes. Chang can probably now get up into this locker a little bit better. This guy now needs to be a little bit larger too, because nightstands are not. They're also at whatever is our table height, right? Move it over so that it's not quite touching the bed. Right, so we made this guy 216, which means we're going to need to make these guys 216 as well because they're the same unit. And then we'll look from the back because these guys should be lined up with the floor here. And we should always start with this guy because he should be there. And they're shaped kind of like this, so I put them so that they step out. Right? Now, if we look back at these guys, they should be much more reasonably aligned. We're going to remember that the door is right here on this side, so putting these guys, the only reason that they're here really is because I wanted to put them in the picture that we did before. They're much more reasonably in the picture now, but now I'm seeing sort of a space issue here. It's a little crowded right there for that locker and stuff you can't do. You know, people will want to have something for putting up their uniforms and things like that. The truth is that there's probably, that's what we need. We need an emergency evac spacesuit locker, right? So the rooms, I would assume, being spaceships, are individually sealed. Right? Yes, back to what you were saying, the U.S. does a lot of things for other countries. And that is something. I mean, certainly we spend a lot of time and effort protecting other nations. Japan is a great example of that. Okay, this is going to be my emergency egress locker. So absolutely. So we can now put these guys right up against this emergency egress locker. And this will give it a logical, reasonable sort of space there. Turn on that west wall and you can see it a little easier now. Now, if we go back to our camera and we come back into the room in this corner, like so, and kind of look this way, it's probably called an EVA locker. except that it's probably not EVA. I'd probably call it an EEL or an, something like that. So we'll take our dude, stand him here in the middle. We'll take our chair and rotate it back around like so. And if we were to render this viewport, over to render settings. There we go. Let's see the EEL over here. These things here, we're going to have to save, quit, and come back in for the new textures to set, which is something I have wondered forever and a day. Why is it? It's another one of those Daz Studio does not think ahead. They don't think that they're going to have to worry about their program having to be reset. So there's no reset button for all of your textures. You just load the textures, and once they're loaded, they're in. And there's no bump the textures and reload all your textures button. There really should be. There should be a button for that. So what we'll do is we'll hit save, and then we'll close. Okay, so we've done the overhead locker here. We're going to do something else. First, we'll reload Daz so we can take a look at it. Okay. And we'll reload this scene. There we go. And you can see it's now reloaded with the new doors. So we can now re-render this. In my content library. The base poses for him are really weird. Like, there's nothing, just him standing. I feel like there should be. I can't ever find it. This is too male, maybe? Your poses. Oh, yeah, here, the CDI poses. I like these CDI poses. Keep buying random pose packs. Some of them are really funny. But at least they've got, like, just Joe Blow standing around poses. I think it's pack 2. It's got the better Joe Blow standing around pose. Because all of these are like him standing around doing peace signs. This is funny, but not really necessary. Like this one's like, whoa, yeah, you're okay. He thinks he's cooler than he really is. I'll pick some of these poses. I'll just pick that. There we go. Right, if we do this, we can add him in the middle of the picture to kind of give an idea of where things are. So I'll pull him back to about here. Right. And then we don't need these. Okay. Go to render settings and we'll hit render. Now it's going to render at 4K, and you can see that my video gets really choppy because I'm using up all of my processor for this. So, okay. Room 1. Save. Now we will show you the magic of how we do this. Open. We go out here to desktop. Room 1. There we go. So take this guy here, new raster layer. This is our ink layer. Will be actually one more raster layer up. We'll take this guy here and we'll make him white so that it's kind of, there we go. We'll go to the black pen, go to our crow quill, and we'll do set our crow quill for this, and we'll just give an outline, and that's all we're going to do here. And we'll screw up the outline. That is exactly what we're going to do. We will screw up the outline. That's us. Welcome to our world, okay? We got to make sure that whatever we do, though, we at least absolutely cover the maquette, because the maquette's been rendered directly onto the scene, and so the maquette has to be completely covered. So, and what I mean by that is you can't do a line like this, because this part of the maquette will show. So we have to make sure we absolutely always cover every part of the maquette. Or we could screw that up too. Don't screw that up. Okay, so we'll do this. We're just making, so this specific figure has one job, and that's to show you what a standard person looks like in this room. Right? So there's nothing else that we're going to do in here except this. Right? And now what you have is just the outline of some person in the room, so that you can at least get a feel of where the person is relative to the rest of the room, right? And that's how we do sort of those. When we do pictures like this picture specifically is designed for us to use it to illustrate what standard quarters look like. So now we have some dude standing there just to kind of give you an idea of what a 6 foot tall human being looks like inside the middle of this room. Might not be the most ideal location for it, but at least you get some kind of concept of what's going on. So it's illustrating the space and illustrating how the space works with the rest of the environment. That's what we're after here. So that's how. Yeah, there won't be a show tomorrow, but I mean, you know, at least you can sympathize with the fact that I will be out on a very hot freeway the entire time, driving for thousands of endless miles, or maybe just 1,000 miles, but So, ghost hand, tomorrow I have to drive 1,600 kilometers to go to Texas, and it's a long haul. So that's going to be, we usually do it in 2 days. We drive about 800 kilometers a day, and then we stop at a hotel, usually in Wichita Falls, which is in Texas, and on the way back, Oklahoma City. So it's sort of our midway points. I don't think it's Oklahoma City. I feel like we go further than Oklahoma City. But once you get into Kansas, not trying to knock you there, Brent, but once you get into Kansas, there's nothing. There's nothing out there. No, we make it to Wichita, Kansas. That's right. We make it to Wichita Falls, Texas on the way down, but we're going to make it to Wichita, Kansas on the way back up. So, yeah, and we'll be back. I mean, everything will be back to normal in 2 weeks. There won't be a show for the next week. I hope I don't lose you, Ghost Hand, during this time. I hope you'll still be here with me whenever we get back. But there won't be a show next week for the whole week. I mean, really, it's Kansas. No, we usually will stop in Wichita, so that's not horrible. I don't know where you are relative to the universe anymore, Brent. I mean, I know you moved out to Kansas, but it's a big state, so I don't know where you are relative to, say, Wichita. Might just do that. Salina is, for those of you who aren't familiar, Salina is where we usually make our stopover. And actually, I-70 connects to I-35 about, I don't know, it's about 5 miles west of Salina. So you're actually not in Salina. We'd have to backtrack, which for a good burger, I might just do. I'm just saying. But this is what I'm calling my my victory lap, so to speak. This route between Denver and Houston, I have literally driven every year or so. You're about in Topeka. Yeah, you're out in Topeka. But I've driven this loop from Denver to Houston and Houston back to Denver once or twice a year, every year for the last 40 years. And I think this is the last time I'm making this loop. So I'm sort of calling it my victory lap. Like, let's just be done with it, My sister lives in San Antonio, and we discovered that we can do, my wife's sister lives in Las Cruces, which is in New Mexico. So we've decided that the better route will be Denver to Las Cruces, stay one night with my wife's sister, and then drive over to San Antonio. And that's 8 hours down and 8 hours over. And so that's a better route to my sister's house. So that'll be how we'll do that from now on. And then we can come back the same way, right? Come back to my sister's, or to my sister-in-law's house, and then back up to Denver. So we won't have to do this route out to Houston anymore. And if I want to visit any of my family out in Houston that's remaining, I'll fly out from now on. I'll just fly to Houston. And really, Houston is a hub for United Airlines, and so is Denver. They're both hubs for United Airlines. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, it's, what was I thinking? I lost my train of thought. It didn't really matter. Never left the station. Yeah, Topeka is a little far from Wichita. I mean, I'd come visit you, but Topeka's a little out there. That's all right. That's all right. Ghost Hand sitting there going, really? Because like all of those cities are, which is fair. I mean, like, for in the for the world of Ghost Hand, all of these cities are really far away. So it's kind of like relative. Everything's relative. Something my father used to say all the time was everything is relative. Okay, so now that we've done this, this gives us sort of a view of this side of the room. But we really kind of want to also do the view from the other side so we can get an idea of what's going on from this angle as well. This actually might be a better angle. And I'm going to go ahead and close this bin because the truth is that there we go. So we close the bin up here so that that bin's closed. And what we'll do is we'll pick a new pose. So maybe this one. Yeah, I'm awesome. Or this one. Hey. It's funny. One of the hardest things that I have discovered as someone who downloads poses a lot is that it's really hard to just get normal poses, like people standing around poses. It's very hard to get. Right? I'm going to put him here, right by the window. There we go. And we'll move over just a little bit so this is inside the realm here. And we'll go to render. And then start being in. Okay. I think it's funny. I think it's a lot of funny. We'll save this. Open room 2. And we'll do the same thing we just did with room 1. Now, one of the things that will have to happen here in a second. Pork. That's the wrong color. Pork. We'll zoom in right here. And we're going to actually use the technical pen for this. And the reason is because I actually do want more of a straight line. Like so. if you should end up with a situation where the maquette does something weird and you're like, not sure about this, guys, then we can... He's still looking over at this locker like something's weird's about to happen over here. Like here, I'm feeling kind of like this is just weird. It makes him look like his hands like octopus hands or something. Is it 5 yet? Sorry, man. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Just sadly not where you are. Sorry, bro. Wish there was something I could do. I mean, I can keep you company. There you go. I mean, we'll just put him over in the corner here. But yeah, his hand kind of looks a little, I don't know, weird. So what I'll do is, rather than do anything else to this room, I'm going to go ahead and flatten it now that that's there. And then fix this here in post, right? So I'm going to take the white, and I'm just going to, like, this is weird. All of that's just weird. I don't even know what that was about. So go here and then do that, right? Put all of his hand finger thingies together, his phalanges. And that way it's just fine. Nobody's going to think twice about it. There we go. See? Now it just looked perfectly normal. The other thing is, now that we're here, I can already see some problems with the fact that this doesn't go all the way across anymore. So I'm going to need to go in here with a straight line tool and bring that straight line tool in, and then just come down here and do that. Because I can already tell they don't connect, right? So we'll have to go back and fix it. This is not a perfect science doing this way. Every time I do these, I'm going to have to, touch up here, touch up there, and make it work. Make sure all of the pieces are clear and clean. There's always a small amount of touch-up work. The idea is to make it minimal, right? Because even this is less time spent than it would for me to hand draw this entire background. So every time I kind of, I hate this, or whatever, all I got to do is think about the fact that it's still less time, and this is much more accurate. There we go. All right. And that, I think, is a good portrait piece, whatever you want to call it, for this particular set, so that I can now put this into the records. I feel like, oh man, this corner needs to be done a little bit more, a little stronger here. But I can put this into the book of what do the quarters look like. This is what the quarters look like. I think we'll have some modifications to it. I feel like right here will be a bookshelf for Chang. She's going to have an extra bookshelf in there. She won't be able to put a bookshelf over here because the door is right here. So she could probably put a bookshelf here. I mean, that's probably right here. That's a stand-in. A gram. Standinogram. Chang's shorter than that. So she wouldn't. I don't know how short she is relative to a standard male, but that's a standard 2-meter male. So 6 feet, whatever is the story. That's your standard 2-meter guy. So, okay, we're going to go over here and a couple more fixes real quick. So, all right. Okay, now what we can do is we save this. Ooh. Little things like, I keep thinking about stuff like around the edges of these chairs, right? No matter which way we're going to look at this, these chairs are going to be hand-drawn every so often. So we look at this as being a guide, right? Because I wasn't able to get enough of this chair to solidify in the render. Because I'm seeing like it's weak over here too. There we go. Just like that, just like that. Let's take the so Chang comes from a world. So she was born actually on planet. So low gravity definitely makes people taller, but only if you are spaceborne the entire time, especially during your development years, like while you're developing and growing up. And Chang, when she was a teenager and stuff like that, she was on a planet in a dome. And the planet was started by exclusivist Chinese. So they had left Earth and became exclusivists. I'm not sure how to put that. But they were, they started out with a great desire for developing their own society and things like that. So that's where she's from. And that world collapsed. The government of that world collapsed and things went, she was dirt side. The government of that world collapsed and everything kind of went to pot when she was 19 or 20. And when that happened, she, the ships that came in to help were Unity ships. So she joined the Unity. It's kind of like, it's a better life than what I was leading down there. So let's go. So she joined the Unity, which actually puts her at odds with her family. Because her family are still sort of believing in that exclusionist sort of style, even though now all the survivors of that planet live amongst the Unity and the Commonwealth. They were spread out, and even some live in the Beehive, the three sort of major superpowers of my world. Even though they live there, they all sort of still believe that they are part of this exclusive culture because that's the way they were raised, and stuff like that. But originally, Julie Cochran was on Tarsus 4, which, if you remember the episode Conscience of the King, Tarsus 4 was where Caridian was, Caridian the Destroyer. Yeah, absolutely. Weigh in, Donald. Join us. Good morning, Donald. You can make light of the situation all you want. So anyway, so right? I mean, it's a rite of passage for all of us to make dad puns. It's required on this show. It's part of the beating heart of this show is dad puns. So anyway, Cochrane, the original Cochrane character from Tamerlane, she was born on Tarsus 4, and she was there when Anton Caridian, did the kill half the population so that they could make it through until the Federation would arrive with food supplies. And I wanted to pass that pathos over, but obviously I can't carry Tarsus 4 over because that's definitely a Star Trek reference. It belongs to Star Trek. It's part of the Star Trek lore. So when I brought over and transformed Cochrane into Chang, I gave her the same sort of background. There was a riot. There were food riots. People were... but I still feel like anything with light speed travel or faster than light speed travel would never have something like that if you're part of the Federation, if you're embedded in the Federation, like theoretically Tarsus 4 was. It was a federated colony. And if the Enterprise and other starships could get there, this is Warp 8. At Warp 8, the Enterprise is a Warp 8 vessel. At Warp 8, even if you say that at Pike's time it was Warp 6, it's still like 5 days to Tarsus 4. And that's like from like all across the other side of the galaxy. So one of the reasons why Star Trek doesn't go back and revisit Tarsus 4 was because, of course, that entire episode had only one point to it, and that was to have Kirk have to deal with Anton Caridian. That was the whole point. It didn't matter what it was all about. If you dive too deeply into it, one of the things that also is now lore is that Hoshi Sato died in that wipeout. She had retired to Tarsus 4, and that's where she was when she died. She was like 106 or 112 or something ridiculously old, and so she was considered expendable by Anton Caridian, so he had her killed just like everybody else on Tarsus 4. They had a light lunch. See? More dad jokes. So that's kind of a thing that I wanted to kind of pass that pathos on, but I wanted to make it more realistic. So instead what I had was, I have this group of Chinese exclusionists who moved out to the stars and found their own colony. And then someone else over the ensuing 200 years, another group moved in with them. And they sort of started this, split the main dome right down the middle. And this side is Chinese and this side is these other people. And they don't cross through the barrier. And the Chinese let them live there because, maybe they needed a home or whatever. But over time, they've grown strong and da-da-da-da-da. And at some point, there's a coup. And these people take over the Chinese side. And when they do, they starve them, effectively, start to starve them out over weeks, months, years. They start to starve them out, and they start to try to kill them off slowly. And it starts out, as a typical, the Chinese did X. Well, the other guys did Y. The other guys are called blue dots because they're Earth literalists. They believe that, Earth is the promised land, yada, 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 and they're trying to get back to Earth. But Earth is an exclusion zone at this moment in our story. You can't get back to Earth. There's actually a group of people called the Valkyries who are stationed on the moon. And if you enter the system without clearance, they come after you with some seriously heavy-hitting weapons. And it becomes very, very difficult. And about once a year or so, somebody tries to get back to Earth, and the Valkyries take them out. And so it's a thing. So these guys, these blue dots, are people who are trying to find a clever way to get back to Earth and can't. Valkyries, I think they're going to be cool. They're going to be an interesting thing. I don't think they're necessarily all women, but it's still cool. But anyway, so in the world that I've been kind of putting together here, right, they punch in the throat. Hey, Pepper, take a look at this. I got the room figured out. And I even have things like, this is an emergency egress locker for when they need to, oh no, the spaceship has decompressed. So run over there and put on an emergency suit, and you got 24 hours worth of air and stuff like that, and you can tootle around. So I'm very pleased with it, and got the little one person to show size in here function. I'll start labeling stuff in a minute. Anyway, so there's a long history behind this Chinese setup, but the TLDR on it is when Chang was 19 or 20 years old, somebody managed to call for help. Right? When somebody is drunk and opens up the airlock, because that will happen. Hey guys, this is me, Matty Bean. What'd you do that for? Maybe all airlocks have a little breathalyzer on them. You have to blow a breathalyzer before you can even touch the airlock buttons. Otherwise, they just electrocute you. Anyway, so yeah, there's a long history behind this, but the long and the short of it is that Chang grew up on in this dome, and when she was a little girl, everything was cool and everything was fine, and I'm going to have her like Cochrane did. Cochrane had a mentor in Hoshi Sato. So Cochrane knew Hoshi Sato, but didn't know her. He didn't know what she was who she originally was. So it's going to be the same thing. Chang had a mentor who was a hero of the original Unity fleet a long time ago. Right. Oh man, that sucks. Oh, open the window. Yeah. I think somebody did that joke in like one of the airplanes or something like that. They were like smoking a cigarette in space. They're like smoking a cigarette. And they open the window and close the window. They open the window to throw the cigarette out, and papers are blowing out. Oh well. So I think they did that one in because back in the 80s it was still appropriate to smoke. So anyway, yeah, so I've got a lot of kind of history going on. By the way, Airplane 2, yeah. By the way, Pepper, this is what I wanted to paint if we were going to do painting. This is the picture I wanted to ultimately paint yesterday but didn't get to. I'm just doing some last minute sort of touch-ups on this guy. Hey, why is the control button pushed? Damn it. There we go. All right. So there we go. That's nice. So I'm going to actually put potted plants in here, but we're going to have to model them first. Because I think potted plants would look really nice in here, as a, like you could put a potted plant right here. That'd be good. Yeah, totally. I'm not saying it because Alexa will trigger if I do. You've seen my Alexa go boop and decide that it needs to be part of this discussion. So, okay, I'm feeling like this guy is pretty done on this one. I can now label things if you really, for people who wanted to know what's in one of these rooms and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not saying it. Because it's a trigger word. My Alexa will be triggered. And I feel like after 500 years in space, we would have something specifically, right? No, bad holographic kitty. Don't nibble on the plants. You're Jon Snow. Prometheus and, in fact, The Expanse, they're doing the same thing in The Expanse, too. The idea of having, like, rooms that are ringed in plants, so that you get sort of the benefit of sort of the recycling of air, recycling of water, carbon dioxide, things like that. The problem is one human versus one houseplant isn't quite enough of an exchange, because plants don't generate. You literally have to fill this room wall to wall with plants everywhere in order for it to exchange properly. So my feeling is that what they will probably have is sort of like a mold of some sort, or not a mold per se, but something like tundra, where it's just really, really tiny grass, and it'd be inside the walls. Yep, pepper's right on it. So you'd have two lines of the walls, and inside there would be just like a grass of some sort. Moss walls or something like that. And so just the walls themselves being this thick would have light going through it, water constantly passing through it. The water would then be washing the plants, giving them water and nutrients and things like that. And the plants would be then transferring carbon dioxide and oxygen. And you really wouldn't need much more than about this much space. But if you've got it that it's 2.5 meters high by 6 or 7 meters deep, and that's all this moss inside there, growing all the time, then, you could have beer walls. That's what we need, is beer walls. Beer walls. Anyway, but the idea then, that'd be exactly what would be going on, is this like transfer of chemicals inside the walls there. So we got about 5 minutes left in the show, and we're going to be going. So like I said, I will be back again on the 13th, which is when I will be returning. So we get a good few days off, don't we? Oh, you didn't want to save it. I've made enough changes that you're now mad. You want to go, are you sure you want to replace it? So half the time you hit save and it just saves. Thank you very much, Ghost Hand. I appreciate that. It's a long trip across a lot of hot land. not looking forward to that at all. So, anyway, but yeah, I'll be back on the 13th, and until then, we'll just take a break, and all will be good. I'm going to shut my computer down. It'll get a break. I think this poor thing needs a break and stuff like that. So, I don't know if I'll be drawing or anything during this trip at all. I think this trip's going to be kind of intense, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of drawing or anything like that capabilities. But if so, you'll probably find my artwork on Instagram as time goes on. Thank you, Pepper, for that. I will endeavor to make it back in one piece, me and my family. So we will do our best there. So let's see what else is going on. I don't think there's anything really else going on at this point in time. I like the fact that there's a new button that's new. What does it mean, add a source? Oh. It allows me to add background music to this. Well, I already have a third-party tool like Zoom or OBS. Share a local video. Huh. That's right. I'll be missing the 4th of July with you guys. The 4th of July is on Sunday, which is all right. I would have missed it anyway for you guys. But happy 4th of July, especially to my American friends. I'm pretty sure that Ghost Hand's just going to have a normal Sunday that's not full of fireworks and explosions and people trying to blow themselves up, which that's somehow an American tradition. So one last story, my father used to live out in the boonies, like way out in the middle of Nowheresville, Texas, away from the city. And so the 4th of July meant us buying a ton of fireworks and bringing them out to the deck of his house and setting off the fireworks. My dad would always get black cats, the little black firecrackers, and he'd get a bag full of them. And what he would do, and I'm amazed that my dad never lost fingers, he would light the black cats and wait until the fuse got to about here and then throw them so that he could watch them explode on the way down. That was his battle plan the entire time. Somehow, he managed to not lose fingers doing this, even though I was like, Dad, you're going to lose fingers doing this. Well, one day, 4th of July, he was pulling out the black cats out of this. He had a grocery bag full of black cats. And he'd light it and throw it, and then light the next one and throw it, and light the next one. And at one point, he lit it, and the fuse fell out of the black cat and dropped directly into the grocery bag full of black cats. My dad had phenomenal reflexes. He picked up that bag and chucked it right off the edge. And just as it went, it started exploding all over the place, and this flaming, exploding wreckage going down into the yard. It was remarkably stunning. It was a stunning display. Sadly, my dad was pretty sad about that. He was pretty downhearted about it because he lost all of those black cats, and he was all into that black cat stuff. But truthfully, I was relieved, because no more risking my dad's fingers on black cats as he tried to flick them off the patio. I did, when I was younger, have a lot of fun, though. We'd go buy a model kit from the store, of an airplane or of a boat. My dad had a little pond in the front yard, and we'd go set these little boats out on the pond. And yeah, it was like Griswold Christmas. And I'd put the black cats and I'd rig them inside these models and light the fuse and set them out on the pond. And bam, 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 and then blow up the ship and sink. And that was fun. But for me, I like to be far away from the house, because I was like, let's not set fire to the house. It seemed like a logical thing to me. I don't know why. Anyway, there you go. That's a dad story for you. Okay, so off I go. I will see you all later. I'll see you guys on the 13th. I hope you guys have a wonderful 4th of July if you're in America. I hope you do not freeze to death down there in Brazil. Thank you all for joining me today, Pepper and Donald and Brent and Ghost Hand. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Goodbye.
Computer, good night.